Today, I will be using the AM/PM original diet to create a special Thanksgiving dinner for our dogs. I will be using ingredients that you and I probably have already purchased for our celebration that we're about to have on November 22nd with our families. The AM/PM diet is the most flexible, freshest, and of course, balanced diet for dogs of all breeds, sizes, and ages. Today, we'll be creating a healing meal for our dog guests that allow them to celebrate right alongside of us. So let's talk about the AM/PM and let's talk about the ingredients that we're going to include today to make it Thanksgiving friendly. So AM/PM, as represented by these two bags, you can see is a two-part diet. That means there are two different foundation mixes, one that you feed in the morning and one that you feed in the evening. Now I have two dogs. I have a 30-pound hound mix and I have an 8-pound Yorkshire Terrier. And both of them are very active during the day. So I have actually flip-flopped the AM/PM meal so that I'm feeding the PM meal in the morning and the AM meal in the evening. My dogs need the protein because they're active during the day. Let's take a look at what these look like. So the two-part foundation mix are completely different, and I'm going to show you each of them. The AM meal is like an oatmeal, and we call that AM porridge. This is a part of the original diet that Wendy Volhard came up with, the first diet that existed as a homemade diet before it became commercial. The second foundation mix is darker in color. It is still a small, dehydrated flake, just like the first one, but it has different ingredients in it that allow the dog to have a complete and balanced diet throughout the day. Now, what you're seeing here, these are the original 10-pound bags that they come in, but what I've done is I've transferred both of these foundation mixes into a sealable container so that I can place them in the refrigerator and have other room for other foods besides dog food. So what you're seeing here are my two foundation mixes in their resealable containers that I keep in my main refrigerator. So the AM meal, how it works is that you're supposed to add a yogurt or kefir to that meal, plus a vegetable. Now, usually the regular vegetable is a steamed vegetable of some sort, your choice, what your dog can tolerate. And we recommend that you use a vegetable that is seasonal. So I've chosen for this particular Thanksgiving Day recipe include Brussel sprouts, pumpkin, parsnips, and carrots. With that said, let's talk a little bit about how balanced this diet is. So you're using a foundation mix that is a fully balanced foundation mix, that you're starting from a fully balanced position, and you're adding a vegetable and you're adding yogurt or kefir to provide probiotics. So just looking at our morning diet, I'm using unpasteurized raw yogurt. I sometimes do give kefir, but in this case, in this time, we're going to use unpasteurized yogurt. And we are going to mix all of the vegetables together because my dogs have had each of these vegetables before and I know they can tolerate them. All right, so how we put this together. So I have two dogs. Like I said, one is 30 pounds, one is 8 pounds. So obviously they don't eat the same exact amount of food. So we're looking at the AM porridge, which I'm using a 1 tablespoon measuring tool in order to put 1 tablespoon in the bowl for Harley, my 8-pound Yorkie, and 2 tablespoons in the other bowl for my 30-pound hound mix. The other uniqueness to AM/PM is the fact that the carbohydrates are served separately from the protein, allowing the dog's digestive system to fully digest each of these elements of the diet without them competing against each other in the enzymes of the body. So we get more digestibility out of the ingredients, and it minimizes the digestive upset for some dogs who cannot digest protein and carbohydrates well at the same time. So like I said, this diet is ideal for all types of dogs, all sizes, and all breeds. And in some cases, it is a healing food for dogs that have digestive issues. So now we put our foundation mix into the bowl. as you can see. And now we're about to add some vegetable. So my dogs, because of their size, don't get a lot of vegetable, as you would imagine, because it's starch. So we're gonna put these to the side, and I'm gonna share with you how we're gonna process these vegetables. So what I've done is I've taken raw Brussels sprouts, and I've halved them like this, and I've put them in the oven at 350 degrees, and I roasted them for 15 or 20 minutes until they're soft. And what happens is, if you look at the Brussels sprouts, I put a little bit of olive oil on them. Olive oil is so healthy. And I mixed them up with my hands, and I roasted them. And they come out like this. So the halves are now this nice golden brown. They're easy to digest, and they're very flavorful. And I did that the same way. So I took organic vegetables. These are carrots grown on the farm, and I processed them by cutting the ends off. You can process them however you would for your normal meal for Thanksgiving. Everybody has carrots at Thanksgiving. Everybody has Brussels sprouts, maybe with a little bacon in them for Thanksgiving. And I sliced them up till about this size, round disc, very thin so that they cook rather quickly. And I do a little bit of slicing of all of these vegetables, and I've roasted those carrots too, and this is what they look like after I've roasted them. They become a little bit smaller, and of course they're soft, and you can put a fork through them. And then finally, the last vegetable that I am using is called a parsnip. And this is really interesting. So parsnips, unless you've not eaten them before, they are a root vegetable, just as the carrot, and they are closely related to the carrot and to parsley, believe it or not. So I do the same thing as I would to process them, just like I do the carrots. I cut them into small round pieces, and then I put them in the oven just the same as the others. I do it all at the same time, one tray, and they come out looking like this. And they have the consistency of a carrot, nice and soft, and a little bit smaller in the end. So that part is super exciting. The pumpkin that I choose to use is from a can. It's 100% pumpkin. There's no additives. When you pull something out of a can, you need to make sure that there's nothing else in that. You want the pure, unadulterated pumpkin. That's what you want. Let's talk about why I've chosen these and why these are great vegetables for our dogs. Carrots, like I showed you here, they are high in antioxidants. They have things like lycopene and beta-carotene. Beta-carotene is actually used by the body and turned into vitamin A. All of those things provide support to the immune system, and they fight off some type of cancers. Brussels sprouts are a member of the broccoli and collard family, if you did not know that, both of which a dog can have. They are also high in antioxidants, and they prevent some kind of cancers, but they do this at the body's cellular level, which is really interesting. So you have two different vegetables that are working on the same thing from two different perspectives. Then they have a number of other vitamins, minerals, and other things that actually help abnormal cancer cells not to grow. They inhibit those things. So unique properties of each vegetable. Parsnips I shared with you about what they're related to, but they are a heart food. This is a heart food, guys. It has high levels of potassium. It helps with bones and teeth. It is a good source of dietary fiber. That's what we want it for. And it prevents anemia. So isn't that interesting? If you have a dog that's suffering from a nutritional form of anemia, liver is one option, obviously, that you can engage with, but now you know parsnips is another. The pumpkin. Why do we add pumpkin? Pumpkin is a really great ingredient that you can use for a number of different things. So it is also heart healthy, and you can see here is the pumpkin I've chosen. It's 100% pumpkin. It has a nice fiber quality to it. It has potassium levels that are high. It has vitamin C, vitamin A. It also helps to control blood pressure. It helps with eyesight, and it helps with GI distress. So if you have a dog that's exhibiting GI distress, a little bit of pumpkin in their food helps to alleviate that. So these are all exciting things. And like I said, you can go online and you can find out about each of these more in depth, but that gives you an overview of why we've chosen these. And each of them has their own contributor to the game. All right, so back to it. So I told you I roasted them, and now what I do, because I have an 8-pound Yorkie, I actually put them through one more process. I take the cooked vegetables and I use a very simple tabletop food processor. You don't have to have $1 million processor to do this. You have to have one that plugs in and works. That's it. How this works is the top comes off of this. I'm able to put ingredients into the top of this. Let's just say, let's put some parsnips in there and see what that looks like. Or we'll put a little bit of parsnips. Let's mix them up. A little bit of carrots. And this way you'll see with the colors, you'll see how that changes. So I screw the top on. This is how this one works. It's that simple. You pop it in there. It's going to be loud for a minute. Yep. The longer you process it, the smaller the pieces. The shorter you process it, the larger the pieces. And when you pull it out, you get a nice fall color. Boy, we couldn't ask for a better fall color of ingredients as we have right here. That beautiful yellow and orange just coming right out. That looks fantastic. So I have to tell you, as an aside, as I was preparing this video, it's hard not to be starved as you're doing this. And my Yorkie, which is asleep right now, she spent the whole morning yelling at me, trying to get me to give her all the ingredients off the table. So let's put this thing together now. So we're gonna bring our bowls back. This is the bowl for my hound mix. It's got more foundation mix, and this is the one for my Yorkie. And we need yogurt first. So according to Wendy's feeding guidelines, which you're going to want to reference, it's done by weight on the website, we are going to put all the ingredients in there according to those guidelines. Now you need to figure out the activity level of your dog and the metabolism of your dog, because you might need to feed more or less based on that. Each dog, like humans, is unique. And they have different levels. Also look seasonally. They might be much more active in the summer, but less active in the winter. So, okay, with that said, a tablespoon of yogurt for the Yorkie, and 2 tablespoons of raw, unpasteurized yogurt, which I get from the farm. You can use regular whole milk yogurt if you have that. Just try to buy organic as often as you can. I find that the ingredients are of better quality and you can trace where they have been, and there's less issues associated with that. All right, so I've added the yogurt to each of these, and what we're missing now is the vegetable. So I told you I'm going to do a mixture because my dogs, I know, can tolerate all of these things. And so we're going to put together the mixture of vegetables, and I'm going to use my already prepared food processed vegetables for our dish. So the Yorkie gets 1 tablespoon of all the vegetables. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little bit of pumpkin in there, and I'm going to put a little bit of parsnip, and I'm going to put a little bit of Brussels sprouts, and I'm going to put a little bit of carrots. So they all come up to about 1 tablespoon, and in that beautiful creation goes. Like I said, you're looking for fall harvest look. You have beautiful yellows, you have the white of the yogurt, and you have the flakes of the oat, which just give you this beautiful looking food, which also has this great flavor to it because you've roasted it up. And for the hound mix, she gets 2 tablespoons of vegetables. So we're going to do a similar thing. Now, if you have big dogs, obviously this becomes much easier because you can just sort of put that together. And that's 1 tablespoon. And you know, I'm moving very slowly right now because I'm showing you, but I'm going to tell you it takes me about 5 minutes to put their food together at home when I'm doing this during the week. And I can also put this together in large bunches and batch it and freeze it so that this way it's all ready. I pull it out and I'm ready to go. But this is supposed to be a fresh Thanksgiving dinner, right? And throughout the day, you're making all these vegetables and they're sitting there cooling, or they're finding their way into a bigger recipe. So how easy is it 2 times a day to just set aside some for the dogs and make them feel a part of things? So what I've done is, and we're going to show you what that looks like. That's what we have in the bowl for each of them. Isn't that beautiful? And it smells so good in here. The final step to this is adding a little bit of warm water. So what we're doing, we have a dehydrated foundation mix and we're rehydrating it using a little bit of warm water. Warm water is nice because it really brings out the aromatic essences of all of the foods. And that's what you want because dogs don't have taste buds, guys. They have olfactory. So we want to excite their olfactory and we want to get them thinking, how delicious is this? And can't wait to have it. So your dog might like this particular thing a little bit more soupy. My dog happens to like it about the consistency of chili, if you can imagine that. And so we are going to add a little bit of water to rehydrate the food. And then we're going to take some time to get it all mixed together. Now you want to mix this all together because if there's some part of it that doesn't have flavors, then your dog's probably not going to eat that. You can, for a picky dog, use bone broth. You can use chicken broth. You need to make sure about the sodium levels and you need to make sure that there's not additional salt added or onions or anything else in that broth that would be harmful to the dog, or you can make your own out of a turkey broth that you can make from the turkey after you're done. So I'm mixing up both bowls and getting that all ready, and it, like I said, looks like the consistency of chili. I will show you as soon as we have that mixed. Thank you for being so patient with me as we do this. All right, so I like to just be sure that all the oats and buckwheat groats get rehydrated, and my dog is already moving because she knows I'm stirring. So this is what you look like. You have something that looks like a porridge. This is the consistency of it, see? Oatmeal, and in there are vegetables and all kinds of goodness, healing foods. Thanksgiving dinner is served. Palatability test? Check. Even my dog, Harley on the left, who doesn't really care for vegetables, finds the AM porridge irresistible. Now that we've completed our AM portion of the meal, we're going to transition now to the PM portion of the meal. And this is exciting because we're getting to use our second foundation mix. So what I do is I take the second foundation mix, which is the PM foundation mix that I showed you earlier, and we're going to go ahead and put that in 2 bowls for the dogs. Now, because the proportion of fat and protein is much different than the proportion of carbohydrate, you're going to see that we use a little bit more of this particular foundation mix than we do for the other. So I have an 8-pound Yorkie and I have a 30-pound hound mix. For the 8-pound Yorkie, we take the 1 tablespoon and we do a heaping tablespoon of the foundation mix. And for the 30-pound dog, we're going to take a 1/3 cup measurement tool and we're going to do a heaping spoonful, a 1/3 cup of that foundation mix. So the ingredients for this foundation mix can be found online on our website, and you can learn also under our company, under ingredients in depth, you can learn about each of the ingredients that's in this part of the foundation mix that has a purpose and added specifically to the diet to make sure that it's balanced. This is a dehydrated mix, just like the oat one that I showed you a few minutes ago. But to this particular foundation mix, all we have to add is our protein source. So for the celebration of Thanksgiving, if we're going to be traditional about it, then we would go with turkey. So here's a fun fact. So in the dog food business, everybody tries to aim their food to be like the ancestral dog's diet. So if you're looking at wolves and what they ate, we want our dogs to eat as close to the ancestral diet as we possibly can. So if we as humans are trying to also move toward the ancestral diet, then let's think about this. The Pilgrims, when they came over, their Thanksgiving meal consisted of not turkey or meat or fish, but it consisted of goose or duck. So if you really wanted to get close to that ancestral diet, human or otherwise, you would choose some kind of game bird in order to put that on your plate. But since goose or duck is not available to us today, we're going to go with the domestic organic turkey with its skin on. You don't want to walk into your local grocery store and pick out a turkey. It would be ideal if you could go find a turkey farm and get an organic turkey from your butcher or somewhere else, so that you know that what that turkey ate before it was being used as food was whole and appropriate for that species. You remember, when you eat meat, whatever that animal ate before it got to you is important on how nutritious that food might be when it gets inside you or your dog. And most dogs are actually non-tolerant of chicken for many reasons. So turkey is sometimes a good second choice for a poultry that allows you to feed a better quality protein poultry than just plain chicken. So we're going to go with that. But I'm going to tell you that Thanksgiving, being an American holiday, even across our country, you can see that people celebrate it with different types of meats on their table. So in order to embrace that in our Thanksgiving meal talk today, I'm going to tell you that if you're having some kind of roast for Thanksgiving dinner, because that's where you came from, then you can use beef. 80-20 beef is our normal recommended meat protein that we go to because it's a neutral protein. It's not warm or cool. It is neutral, and most dogs can tolerate it. So if you're doing a red meat of some sort, that might be exciting. You would put that through the processor food, or chop it up real small, or stew meat size pieces and include that as your protein. Or if you want to be unique, and I know that I have some Italian friends, Teresa Richmond is one of them, and she told me that her family used to have fish. So in order to embrace that, we are looking at fresh fish today. This happens to be mackerel. Mackerel is a great fish for dogs, and so I implore you, if you are fish oriented, then you take mackerel and you use that as your protein source in your evening meal. We're going to use turkey because I know my dogs can tolerate turkey without an issue. So we're going to go ahead and use that. Now what I've done, this is uncooked turkey. So this diet is flexible, and I told you that from the beginning. I feed raw. So I take raw meat that I know what source it came from, and I am careful to handle that meat in a respectful way. And I process that meat. So I took, in this case, the turkey, and I cut the meat off the bone. We don't want bones. We don't want organs, because our diet is completely balanced. You don't need any of those things because the ingredients providing those vitamins and minerals have been provided in the diet for you. All we're adding is the muscle meat protein. That's all we need. So we are leaving the skin on because protein fat ratio needs to be gotten to. In the 80-20 beef, you get that very easily. In turkey, we leave the skin on so that the fat remains with the muscle meat, because turkey, as you know, is less fat than beef. All right, so what I did is I basically I stuck my turkey meat, the muscle tissue, into my trustworthy tabletop processor. I chewed it up a little bit because I have a little 8-pound mouth to feed, and basically came up with what looks like this. And that is a simply broken down processed meat that is ground by me instead of at the food store. And so my 8-pound Yorkie, she gets 1/3 cup of protein, and I basically just pick out the meat as I can. I put it in, pack it down, and in it goes. And my hound dog, who's 30 pounds, in case you're just joining us, gets 2/3 cup. So I basically take 2/3 cup of meat. And I have chosen to use primarily dark meat. So although my favorite too, so it's hard to fight for it, is I use the thigh and leg primarily, but you can use breast meat, you can use any meat that you would like to, that you have, and you can certainly use things that are left over. I must also add that you can certainly braise the meat, no matter if it's beef or turkey or chicken or lamb, depending on how you're feeding your dog today. You can braise it. You don't want to cook it well, but you want to get the aromas going in the food. You want to cook it on the outside, leaving the inside cool, and add that to your dog's diet. So for those of you that do not feed raw, you are not eliminated from the celebration here. And you can use AM and PM as your diet, even though you don't want to feed raw. So what does that look like? I'm going to show you. In the bowl, we have the raw turkey, we have the foundation mix, twice as much for my bigger dog. And the only thing left to do is what I did with the AM meal, is to rehydrate that food so that we can get those concentrated vitamins and minerals that have been condensed during the dehydrated process of cold dehydration, which it does not destroy anything. There is no heat added. We're going to rehydrate that, and we're going to bring them back to their normal consistency. So I'm adding water, and again, for my dogs, in their preference, they like it about the consistency of chili, but you can always change that and make it so that your dogs can have it more loose or more firm, depending on what their preference is. And you feed a couple of times, obviously, and you already know that. So here we are, I'm mixing, I'm rehydrating the mix. This is what it looks like along the way. The turkey, I'm mixing that in. I'm smashing it down for my smaller dog so that this way she can get a mouthful and not be overwhelmed by the size of the chunks of the meat, if there are any in there. Again, you want to mix this thoroughly, because obviously if there are no meat left in some parts of the bowl, maybe they'll leave that behind. We don't want that to happen. We want them to have a complete mouth, beautiful bite every time they take one in. So this is exciting. So here we go, and I'll show you what this looks like after I get it all mixed up. Very good. So now you're asking yourself, what if I feed NDF2? What is NDF2? NDF2 is the Natural Diet Foundation 2. That is both the AM and PM mixed together in a convenient way in the appropriate ratios, so that a person who has a busy lifestyle doesn't have to think about adding yogurt or vegetables or anything like that to the diet. So they get the benefit of those things because in the diet, they actually have those in it already. So if you're feeding NDF2, can you do this Thanksgiving diet? Sure you can. You already have carrots that are already in that as the vegetable, and you have probiotics, so you don't have to add yogurt if you don't want to. So what do? You take your protein and you mix the NDF2, 2 bowls, right? Feed 2 times a day. And to that you add your protein in each bowl, and you're off to the races. Now you can add the Brussels sprouts and the parsnips and the pumpkin. You can add all that to the NDF2. You don't have to worry about not having those extra vegetables, but you already have the carrots in there, so it's one less that you have to do. Look at you. Okay, so what we have is basically what looks like chili. Now in this case, it's lighter only because I didn't use beef, I used turkey. So the lightness of the turkey meat that looks like that allows the color from the liver that's in this particular evening recipe to be the darkening quality. That's why everything is brown, because when you add liver to something, that's what happens. There you go. I've covered AM, PM. I've covered NDF2 if you feed that. Now, I also covered what happens if you don't like turkey, right? So the other thing that I didn't mention is you could do a half and half. You can do half beef, you can have turkey, or you can do it raw or braised. So don't forget that. All right, well, I think we finished up here. I think that this is all that I have to share with you today. I hope that each and every one of you enjoys their Thanksgiving holiday time. I hope you get a chance to sit down with your families, including your little fur babies, and enjoy the bountiful foods and vegetables that we have at Thanksgiving, and remember to appreciate one another. Happy holidays, everyone.